Clarina Nichols, the subject of my talk, was born in 1810 in Vermont, died in 1885 in California, and spent a good deal of the middle of her life trying to make life better for others. And there were a lot of reasons why she needed to make life better. Life was pretty poor for women at that time in history. Up on the screen, you should see a list of some of the most egregious grievances that women had at that time. Most of all, we think of the right to vote, but there were many other issues that women had with the law and with life as it was at that time in history. Married women could not inherit, control, or bequeath property in their own names. Divorced women did not have equal custody rights with their husbands. If the father wanted the children, he generally got them, no matter what kind of character he was. Divorced, this would be women whose husbands died intestate, that means without a will. They were entitled to only 1/3 of their husband's estate. The other 2/3 went to the husband's male relatives, even if they had to track down a third cousin in England. All public universities were closed to women. Women could not follow any of the professions, the higher paying professions, that is, doctor, or physician, or minister, lawyer. All of these were closed. Women could not serve in public office. They could not, of course, women could not vote to gain any of these things. They would have to do it by convincing men to give them what they demanded. What happened in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York, is that 5 women got together around the tea table, started talking about the grievances they experienced in life. And this became the original Me Too movement. And this is when storytelling really made this movement catch on. By the middle of these women were coming out in droves. There were 1,000 and 2,000 people that attended conventions in the northern parts of the United States. And they were all telling their stories for the first time. Many of them had never spoken in public, certainly not to public that included men. That was a no-no. But they started telling their stories in very shaky terms, talking to big halls of people where it was difficult to understand. But they were energized by this, and a great movement was born that most people have never heard of. Clarina Nichols was a newspaper editor at that time. She had been through a terrible divorce herself. Her children had been taken away from her by her terrible husband, and she had recovered from that. But she was very sympathetic to other people, other women who had gone through the same. She knew exactly how they felt, and this movement grew by storytelling. When the Kansas-Nebraska bill was passed, she decided to join those who were immigrating to Kansas, where she felt that would be the place where she could do the most good. And she felt she'd run into a stone wall out east. She was
want to talk about the paper?
Pardon?
Do you want to talk about the newspaper?
Yeah, she had become the editor of the Windham County Democrat. That was actually her husband's newspaper, but he became ill. She took over quietly and and spent 10 years editing that newspaper, one of the few women editors in the country at that time. But she speaks to the Vermont legislature, and she gets a mild reform in laws that affected women, but she didn't feel she got enough, and she thought if she came to Kansas in a new place, things would be more open. She'd be able to accomplish more in a western state than she could in an eastern one. So she traveled to Kansas with her 2 sons, who ultimately joined John Brown and walked alongside him in the Battle of Blackjack. One was wounded. She, on the other hand, was discovering that she didn't like country life too much, and she'd rather be in a town. So she came to the port city of Quindaro. And there she found like-minded people, she found friends. And she began to work toward what she knew was going to happen, which was a constitutional convention. This would be her chance to get women's rights written into the Constitution of the new state. She also did other things in Quindaro that many people don't remember, but she was the consulting editor for a term at the Chippewa. She left it when she discovered that the editor, while very liberal in certain respects and abolitionist, he did not believe in women's rights, and so she quietly resigned. She ran a private school in which she did not discriminate on the basis of race. Children of all races were welcome. And to begin gathering allies for what she knew would be a fight for women's rights in Kansas. When that happened in 1859, 1859, she gathered her strength and went by pony, by stage, and on foot to the other cities in Kansas. And she was passing around a petition that she got some 600 people to sign. And they signed it in demanding rights for women be written into the Kansas Constitution. And that included the right to vote. When the convention actually occurred, she rode her pony over to Wyandotte City, and there she was not allowed to speak publicly. She and her good friend Lucy Armstrong from Wyandotte entertained the people, entertained the men who had come to write the Constitution, invited them over for tea and for desserts, and they came and they talked politics, but she was not allowed to speak during the convention. The New York Tribune, which was following this very closely, said that some of the time Mrs. Nichols plies her pen and sometimes her knitting. She got enough allies at that convention to get reforms written into the Constitution of the new state.
Yes, on your right-hand side, right in front of you.
And these were not tremendous reforms, but they were reforms. The most important things were these four things. She got married women's property rights. She got equality in all school matters. She got
Custody. Custody.
She got
Oh, equal custody rights with
equal custody rights, which was very important. And one big thing that was not in existence anywhere in the country, and that was voting rights, the right to vote in school district elections. A first in the nation and an entering wedge to full suffrage, she believed. She would have a chance to test one of these reforms a few months later. She was walking through the streets of the town, and she came across a woman who had just arrived on a steamboat to Quindaro. She had a real burden to share, and Clarina Nichols was able to get the story out in short manner. She had a way of relating to people on a real personal level, and they trusted her, and this woman, Lydia Peck, trusted Clarina with her story. She was out east. She lived in one of the New England states, and she was married to a husband who was a drunkard, and she supported the family on her own earnings, her husband, of course, having control over that. She finally had enough, because he was also physically abusive, and so she asked for a divorce. And he kicked her out of the house, took all her money, and ran with it, and with her 2 children, and came to Kansas. Now she had no children and had to start all over. She worked in a factory for several years, collected the money until she had $400 in gold, and then went looking for her children. Some way she learned that they were in Quindaro, and she was there to find them. Whoever recognized this woman's story and recognized the man she was describing as a neighbor of Clarina Nichols. And she recognized it also because these children had been going door to door getting food. Hungry little waifs who nobody was taking care of. So she enlisted some other members of the town to help her out, and then she herself, Clarina, took herself to the headquarters of the state and worked to get a divorce for Lydia Peck. She stayed there a whole month, really acting as Lydia's lawyer. And she was asked by men at the convention, why would a woman need protection from her husband? And she happily informed them of what was happening out there with her own stories. She managed to get this divorce, and this was a test of the new ruling that was out there, the new way that the new laws on divorce. And she did obtain a divorce for Lydia. And after that was over, and she was ready to go home, she sent a man on a fast horse to go to Quindaro and warn the people there that what might be happening, because they considered that the husband, once he learned that this divorce had been made, he would try to leave Quindaro, which indeed he did. They caught him trying to escape with a gun over his shoulder and the 2 children in tow. And so he was detained, and the children and the mother escaped using the old trails of the Underground Railroad. So this was just one of the stories that Clarina Nichols put in her, tell over and over again to make people care, as our last presenter said. That was the best kind of thing to do, is to tell stories, not to just talk about the problems in a bleak or a way, but to actually tell stories of what happened to the women who did not have the laws they needed. She continued in this way for the rest of her life, in every way that she could. She was only one small woman making a difference, but she was part of a large group of women and men who realized that all men and women were created equal, and that all of them should have equal opportunity to find life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Diane wanted me to close by reading this quote, and this was part of Clarina's memoir to Quindaro. Unlike some of the bigger, fancier figures whose names keep reappearing in these presentations, Clarina never stood to make a lot of money, and in fact lost a lot of money in her Quindaro Township Company share. She was here for what we would call very idealistic reasons, and she stayed in Quindaro till the bitter end, not moving out and selling her place until after the Civil War. But she still, despite that financial hardship, remembered Quindaro very fondly. Many a brave deed was done there, and many a mean one circumvented, of which the world outside knew not.